Do you speak crowdlending? Welcome to our podcast covering the crowdlending industry. Our mission is to provide you with all the insights from this market and help you make informed decisions. I'm Gassan, co-founder and CEO of Acredius. We are a crowdlending platform based in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm delighted to host this podcast and hopefully bring value to all our listeners. Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 22 of the Do You Speak Crowdlending podcast. I'm honored today to have Konstantin Boyko with us. Konstantin is the CEO and co-founder of CrowdSpace and LenderKit. Welcome, Konstantin.
Hi, Gassan. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Konstantin. So you are CEO of two companies already here, so you need to let us know now. You need to explain to us what is CrowdSpace, what is LenderKit, and you can tell us also a bit more about you personally, because I think everyone will be interested.
Okay, so I will start with myself, and then I transition into different companies and different brands, which I'm working with and which are co-founded. So first of all, I start with where I'm from and where I am now. So I'm from Ukraine originally, but since last year I live in Amsterdam, Netherlands. So that's story on that side. And in terms of background and business, I actually have a mathematical background from the university and even incomplete PhD. But 15 or 16 years ago, I had to turn into different direction, namely in technology, in software development. And that's when I co-founded a software development company called Just Code It, together with a few friends. We all came from tech, not from business side. So we were learning how to do business properly in many ways. And down the road, we understood that the only way for a software development company to stand out is to have a niche and to be specialists in something. And for us, this niche happened to be crowdfunding, and more specifically, building crowdfunding platforms. So initially, we were just building custom platforms for our customers, and eventually we built our own product, which is now called LenderKit. So this is the first brand you mentioned, which in a sense is a white label software for running crowdfunding platforms. But the idea is that it's customizable and flexible. It means that for every customer, we can potentially add any integrations, change any business or money flows, user interface, and tailor the platform to any specific business requirement. That could be regulations, because they're different in very different parts of the world. This could be integrations with payment providers, KYC, or just different business models, because we try to cover as many as possible, including equity crowdfunding, debt crowdfunding, and even things which technically are not crowdfunding, but they can be implemented using our software. So that's LenderKit, and CrowdSpace is the most young brand which we have. It was started actually as a side project during COVID in 2020, and we, in a way, it was sort of, well, it is an internal startup, and so we wanted to test an idea that if we we collect data about platforms, crowdfunding platforms in Europe, put them into certain structure, make parameters, create certain landing pages, that this structure will be attractive enough for search engines like Google. And the question for us was whether it will generate organic traffic this way. The answer eventually was yes. So we continued to develop it into more functional application, more functional website. And the whole vision is not just about the directory of crowdfunding platforms, which it basically is. We now have more than 500 platforms over there listed. But the idea is to actually create a community around crowdfunding and also to educate the people, the general public, about different options for crowd investing, for crowdfunding, for crowd lending, and so forth. And that's we see that as a contribution to the industry in a certain way, because we are working in this industry and we also want to give something back. So that's where we are, and we also allow platforms to be engaged and involved into the data which we are listing, because we can of course collect the data manually, but in order to maintain the data and to make sure that everything is up to date, we need platforms to be engaged, and we want them to participate in this process. So right now they already can claim their profile or create their profile depending on whether they are listed already or not, and manage their information, manage their data. We already have about 70 platforms who manage their data themselves. So I think that's quite a good result so far.
Very interesting. I'm just curious. I mean, you build software, so how did you come to focus on crowdfunding?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, as I said, we really needed specialization, because in this business
could have been snail farming or something. Right?
Yeah, it could be pretty much anything. I guess it's maybe it was a chance that at the moment when we decided to specialize, we had a few customers from the industry, and that's how we decided that we want to dig deeper and basically explore this niche.
Interesting. I mean, I believe listeners know what is a crowdfunding platform or lending platform as one of its verticals, but a crowdfunding aggregator, that's something interesting. So you understand you want to add value to the industry, so that's why you're showing the CrowdSpace or as a platforms in terms of data. But what do you do more with that? So and why would, say, a company, a crowdfunding platform, be happy to be listed in your platform?
Well, first of all, if we bring traffic to our website, to CrowdSpace, to the directory, potentially there are people who want to invest into something using crowdfunding. So our visitors are basically needed by those crowdfunding platforms, and we serve a sort of lead generation or marketing channel for them. So that's I guess that's the primary value for any platform which is listed. But besides that, we also want to add value in other ways. So, for example, we create quite a lot of content, and we do a bit of research at the moment. We might be doing more, but we're already doing some. And so, for example, in terms of content creation, we create some content in collaboration with some of the platforms. So it could be an interview with a platform owner, or joint piece of content, joint article, for example. And in that way, it benefits both us as a directory, as an aggregator, and also the platforms themselves, because it's additional PR for them and potentially additional traffic, additional users, and so forth. And I think our vision is that the platforms themselves should also try to be united, to be more collaborative between each other. And that's why the vision of creating ecosystem rather than just directory, I think it makes sense, because the industry itself is not super crowded, and the more education the platforms together can do to can provide to potential investors, the better result will be for all the platforms.
Nice. So with the clients you have, the platforms you're working with, they're using lender kit, right?
Yes. So the platforms which we help launch, they use lender kit, our software, as a basis for their crowdfunding platforms.
So tell us more about it. What is lender kit? Why is it better than for a platform to develop its own software, for example?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's not always better. Every platform has their own circumstances, their own situation, and sometimes, well, not everyone needs our product. That's for sure. So they always have different options. One option is building the platform from scratch internally. The other option, which is similar but a bit different, is to outsource the development to an external company. And the third option is to use a software which is already built and then customize it to your specific requirements. Which option is better? Then that really depends on the customer situation, and also in our case, I guess if we talk about lender kits, probably it depends on how close the business model and the requirements are to what we have out of box. Because the way how we work is we have quite strong foundation, so it's already built software which can be launched, and it will already have a lot of functionality technically, but then it needs to be tailored and customized with help of our developers to match the exact requirements or the exact to implement exact solutions which are needed for a specific business. And that might be very different depending on regulations, for example, because as you know, there are very different regulations in different countries. Like, for example, in the US, they have their own set of regulations, different exemptions. In Europe, right now, they're going to be a pan-European regulation, or there is already, but it is still in transition mode. In the UK, they have FC regulating with their own requirements. And in other parts of the world, in some current countries, it's only the regulations don't exist at all. So everything is unregulated. In some countries, but there could be two cases. One case is everything is allowed. The other case, everything is forbidden. So in some countries, there are specific sandboxes which allow startups to launch crowdfunding platforms under certain test regimes, and then they measure feedback and so forth. Like, for example, we have quite a lot of customers in Saudi Arabia where they have this sort of sandbox for regulatory regime, and that also drives demand for building new crowdfunding platforms.
And how does that affect lender kit and the fact that you're providing the software on your side? Is it the same because you're just on the software side, or you still need to be also somehow regulated, or how does it affect your business?
Well, we don't have to be regulated because we just provide the software, and regulation in general, it's not really about the software itself. It's about the business and the business operations. Software, in a sense, it's a tool which the business uses to make something happen, but of course it implicates certain requirements for the software. If you need to comply with regulations, you need to do some things in a very specific way. You need to have some data. You need to have some reporting, and so forth. Or you need to work with some payment providers which are compliant with the regulations, for example. So that definitely impacts our site, because we need to first of all we need to choose the right integrations depending on where the customer is. And in Saudi Arabia, the integrations are very different from those in Europe, for example. So in Europe, you have if you're looking for a payment provider, there are a number of standard options like Lemonway, for example, MangoPay, and others with less market shares. But in Saudi Arabia, there is no equivalent of Lemonway, for example, or MangoPay. There are local banks which needs to be integrated directly, and every time we work with the customer, there are new solutions, new technical solutions which needs to be implemented. So that part definitely impacts what we do, and also when it comes to other processes, like what documents you need to collect from the potential investors, or what limits you need to have for certain offerings and so forth, that is also different in different parts. So we have how we approach this problem is that we create certain modules which solve problems for specific markets. So for example, we have a module which is tailored to US regulations, and that module in itself, it helps our customers to be compliant there. When it comes to Europe, we have another module which helps in a different way to be compliant with European regulations. But that is true for the markets where the regulations are established and they are like big markets in a sense. When it comes to developing markets, obviously it's something which needs to be done from scratch and for every customer.
Yeah. So this somehow allows you to have kind of a holistic view, a global view on markets on the crowdfunding side. And with CrowdSpace, you guys have a yearly publication where you look at the market and you show very interesting facts. Can you tell us a bit more about that report, and especially if you can tell us where is it heading in the future?
Yeah, okay. Well, that report actually, it was started almost the same time as CrowdSpace was started as an idea, and that was another child of COVID in a sense, because during COVID there were, I guess everyone had more time than previously in some sense, and this report was another idea which we launched at the time. So basically what we do is we survey crowdfunding platforms. For the purpose of this report, we only limit ourselves with Europe, just because it's easier, I guess, and it's easier to benchmark platforms against each other when it's the same region, because I guess it's quite hard to compare platforms in Europe to US. They have very different market size and different regulations and so forth. So we started with Europe. We reached out to the platforms and we asked them a number of questions in the form of survey, and then we produce reports, and we do it annually since 2020. We produce reports based on the answers and the data, the information we gather from the platforms directly, and we also add. But it's not just like statistical data. We also add some thoughts from our side, I guess, to explain what we see, and also we just quote what platforms say themselves, because it's also valuable to hear like what others in the industry are saying. And for us, obviously, again, it's a bit of contribution to the industry in general, because we are doing this sort of research. Of course, it's another piece of content we are producing, and content marketing obviously helps for us in some ways. So we for sure we are working for our own PR and marketing, but at the same time there are goals, like I said, for the industry, for research and so forth, and that data and those reports that also helps academics and researchers in some way, because they are doing pretty much the same but with different approach, and they don't necessarily have the same resources. So we are, you asked where we are heading with it. I think we might partner with some academics or institutions to produce maybe more advanced reports, more scientific in a way reports, because what we are doing, it's not like what they do in academics. It's more, it's our own view. It doesn't use very advanced methodology, something like this. But at the same time, I think what we are doing also has value.
Interesting. So that's like kind of the education part that you are providing, which is very interesting. And I know that you also do short videos, mainly on the crowdfunding, and some of them you mentioned that the meaning of crowdfunding has changed. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, the video you're talking about, I think, well, it definitely it is evolving over time, and I think that crowdfunding in itself as a concept, it started as a way to kind of validate a business, in the sense of, let's say you have an idea, a business or a project, and if people want to fund it, to contribute to it, then it's a good idea and it deserves to be implemented, right? That's how Kickstarter, for example, works, all or nothing. But then it evolved into another way of raising funds, which is, of course, it is alternative to traditional ways of raising funds with funds, VCs, and so forth, angel investors. But I think it becomes closer and closer to traditional ones. And for example, if you look at the Seedrs or Crowdcube platforms, equity crowdfunding platforms, you will see, and we see it with the data, because we were doing a bit of scraping the data and analyzing it, that almost all the projects there, they come pre-funded. So the moment that when they are exposed to public, to general investors, they already raised like 80%, for example, from their network or from high-end investors and so forth. So it means that it's not really a question whether it will be funded or not. They just use the platform and this tool as a way to build awareness, to, of course, to collect some money. But I think the primary goal is to market their startup, in a sense, because that creates PR and.
I see. So you're thinking that crowdfunding is getting somehow institutionalized. So it's becoming more of a marketing tool than really.
Well, that's one side. That's one side of it. But on the other side, if we look at P2P lending or crowd lending, then it becomes closer to institutional funding. So if you look at platforms which started as consumer-to-consumer loans, for example, P2P in its like classical sense, later on, those platforms basically become a sort of a bank issuing loans to consumers. Even though it's technically still a platform, but behind it there are institutional lines of funding, which basically provide all that capital to borrowers.
So what would be your recommendation or advice to an investor, say a retail investor, a person who is really interested in, let's say, crowd lending and saying, okay, I want to experience this? What do you suggest him to start with? What do you recommend he looks at?
Well, I'm definitely not in position to provide financial advice, but I think my personal view would be that any investor looking to invest in crowdfunding or in crowd lending or something like this, first of all, they need to to be very clear that what they're looking at is a high risk investment. That's, well, it's kind of regulatory requirement, I guess, for every platform to educate their investors on that. But I'm not saying it because of this. I'm saying it that from my perspective, people who invest through platforms, they should have something besides financial interest, and they should be, if they ask themselves like, what will I get, or what am I getting investing in this besides the financial return, they should have an answer. So for example, if they believe in a specific startup and they want to give them a chance to grow, that would be a good reason. If they believe in green energy and they see a green energy project which they invest into, that's another reason. So I guess my idea is, or my advice would be to be ready that you will not get your money back, but at the same time you will support something and you will increase chances of something to happen.
Well, I mean, most of them get their money back, right? But I see it. So what you're saying is, well, it's a high risk investment, of course, as compared to, I don't know, real estate.
Yeah.
High risk.
I think my point is, if you're just looking at a way to get your money back, invest into something safe, like well, stocks still is not the safest thing, but you know, real estate, ETFs, or anything which is more stable and balanced. But for crowdfunding, of course, it's great when you get your money back, but there should be something besides it.
Yeah. That's also what we all tell even to our own clients. It's important to diversify and not commit funds that you cannot say survive with, right? So it's part of the game. Otherwise, it's gambling, not investing.
Yeah.
So interesting. Thank you for sharing these thoughts. But I think there is one thing that's very important. Every guest have shared that information, and you, in that case, also need to share, because it's actually, I'm looking forward. One day I'll do also a report with the Do Speak Crowd Lending, like with you guys with CrowdSpace. I'll put scientific evidence between, say, a link between the fruits that people like and their opinion on crowd lending, crowdfunding. So what is your favorite fruit, Konstantin?
Do you already have statistics or some results, or just collect?
I do, but I'm not able to really say if it's reality, but whatever. I'll let you know when the report is out.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's the toughest question from everything you had. Well, let's say orange or mandarin. I think, and I think the orange color will also serve me a good image in Holland, where I am right now. So let's go with orange.
Excellent. Konstantin, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Anything you want to add?
No, well, first, I just want to add thank you for inviting me. I think it's really important to talk about crowdfunding and the industry, and let's hope that we are growing the industry in this way together.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And thank you everyone who is listening to us, and hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's value to what you already have. Everyone take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gaston.